Welcome to our very first Legal Technology Resource Center video roundtable. We're doing through Zoom today. I'm Allison Shields. I am the Vice Chair of the Legal Technology Resource Center and also the President of Legal Ease Consulting. And I'm going to let our other panelists also introduce themselves. Sophia?
Thank you, Allison. Hi, I'm Sophia Lingos. I'm the chair of LTRC, the Legal Technology Resource Center that is part of the Law Practice Division of the American Bar Association. I'm also the managing attorney of Trident Legal. We represent small businesses and startups in diverse stages of their business, and I'm located in Boston, Massachusetts.
Dennis?
And I'm Dennis Kennedy. I'm a legal innovation consultant and an adjunct law professor at University of Michigan and Michigan State University, and a longtime board member of LTRC.
Great. And Mike?
Hi, my name is Michael Goller. I'm a money and dirt lawyer from Cleveland, Ohio, small corporate business boutique practice, longtime member of the Law Practice Division and other ABA entities, and a confirmed road, now home warrior.
Okay, and last but not least, we have John.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Locke. I'm a business lawyer at the firm Nutter, McClellan and Fish in Boston. I've been a member of the LTRC for a couple of years, and my focus is primarily on distress situations along with technology deals.
Great. Okay, so now that we know who our panel is, today we're going to talk a little bit about what's happened with the coronavirus and how that has affected us as lawyers and what we're seeing in the technology space related to that. So I'll start out with our first question, which is, how has the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders changed how you are all practicing law now? And how does technology play a role in that? Dennis, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I've been working at home for a while, and I think the biggest change for me was to switch from in-person classes at 2 law schools to online without missing a beat in mid-semester, which was a challenge in a lot of ways, but I was so impressed with both the administrations of this law schools and the students for how hard they worked to make that happen. Otherwise, I think for me, I found that this has given me some time to step back, maybe not voluntarily, but to step back and think about what I want to do next and focus on, and to think through how my technology works for me. But I don't think any of this would have been possible without good technology, which fortunately I had in place.
That's great. How about you, John?
Thank you, Allison. The shutdown orders necessitated a complete shift to a virtual environment, which our firm was able to accomplish in relatively short order. We have about 150 lawyers in Boston with a smaller office down Cape Cod. Everything removed remotely within days, and that includes all the back office support functions and so forth. I had been used to working remotely occasionally through the electronic filings that I do, emails, telephone calls, virtual meetings. So for me individually, it was not much of a change, but to see my entire office move so quickly was really something else, and something that would not have been possible, I think, 5 years ago, 10 years ago for sure.
How about you, Mike?
We moved totally virtual for a while now. We're rotating back and forth, but we set up a rotating schedule for staff to come in, and lawyers came in if they felt they needed to for some particular reason. Otherwise, we were under a stay-at-home order, and we really had no problem staying at home. I mean, I've always practiced remotely, whether nationally or internationally, because I travel a lot, and I just found that go to my PC to get into my desktop continues to work as a great access. I have VPN access. All of our attorneys have access to the network that way. So it really was pretty easy. The things that really that I miss most are having the ability, frankly, to walk down the hall, and our halls aren't very long. There's only 6 of us in the firm, to chat with somebody. That physical contact, camaraderie kind of aspect is what is a big part of being in a group. And it's, you know, it's hard to miss that, but we talk a lot and we have our meetings on Zoom now. So.
Great. And Sophia, what changes have you seen?
You know, what's interesting is that I had everything set up to work remotely. I have a paperless office, everything's in the cloud. I could be at an in-person meeting, I wish, with all of you and be able to open my iPad, my phone, my laptop, and really connect to all of my client files securely. And so I've always had the ability to do so. I think the biggest challenge for me was at home, I also inherited 2 young associates, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, when school was canceled. And so suddenly, whether or not I was equipped to work at home, no amount of technology was going to also entertain them, iPads aside, while I was doing the requisite amount of work to continue to support my clients who are small businesses who are all facing their own challenges as well. And so I think that not acknowledging that would be overlooking a major part of what I've been dealing with in going through the crisis. But that being said, I remember talking to a friend last winter who I was trying to encourage to get everything set up remotely, because we've got weird winters in Boston, and when it snows, sometimes the whole city just shuts down. She's like, oh, I've got to go into the office. I'm like, why? Why are you not set up? You're home by yourself. You should just open your laptop and be able to work remotely. And actually, it was GoToMeeting that I could never get her to convince her that she needed to be in the cloud, but I did convince her to finally figure out how to do remote login. And I remember going through that process, and I was thinking so many of my colleagues who were all of a sudden trying to figure out this technology and getting these phone calls so quickly. What do I use? What do you mean drag and dump everything into a folder? What about all these files? And I'm looking at the files thinking, I don't have one. I don't actually have one physical paper client file. Everything is in the cloud in my practice management system. And so even though my work hours kind of shifted from bedtime until my bedtime, and then maybe during nap time again for a period until we were able to kind of find that balance, if I didn't have access and I had to deal with trying to figure that out all over, plus the efficiencies that have been created by setting up a virtual office. Instead of having to go down to the filing room, and today's actually my first day back in my real office, I look at my actual file cabinets, but go and get files out and pull them and looking for client information, you type it in, you can automatically search. So the efficiency that's been created from having everything set up online really allowed me to work smarter and faster, even though I'm willing to work harder, but time does not necessarily permit that when all of this happened.
Sophia, it seems that you were a totally paperless office. I presume totally paperless office or virtually paperless. We're not, although we try to be paperless. We've never really gotten to the totally paperless. I'm just curious, for particularly a larger firm like Frank at your firm, I imagine you guys aren't anywhere near totally paperless. How is that working for you guys? How's that affected you?
So Michael, my own personal practice is fairly digital, right? But my colleagues, it runs the range, right? We have people, especially I think you mentioned your dirt lawyer, real estate lawyers, they do not seem to be in the digital age fully, right? There seems to be a lot of paper that follows real estate lawyers everywhere. So we have a lot of real estate colleagues, they have a lot of paper. In my practice, which involves commercial bankruptcy, ECF filings, the courts are, the U.S. bankruptcy courts are very, very good with technology. So a little bit more digitally orientated. So yeah, personally, my practice is pretty much can do it anywhere, but the colleagues range the gamut. Our litigators are pretty tech savvy. Our trust and estates, private client lawyers, they're getting there. For example, Massachusetts just passed a law, Sophia, I'm sure you're familiar with it, about notarizations, right? So that's a huge issue. And I know a lot of the states have dealt with that as well. But listen, nobody was thinking about these issues 6 months ago, only when the crisis hit. And there has been a lot of acceleration, a lot of adoption, a lot of, coming to terms with the benefits of using technology in the last several weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. I can say with some of the lawyers that I've talked to and some of my clients also, that sometimes the adjustment was on a court side or on the agency side, or needing some kind of legislation to allow them to do certain things. So like the notarization, but there's also witnessing for things like wills and that. Can you do remote witnessing? So I think that we're getting pulled along sometimes whether we want to or not with the technology. So for those of us who are, you know, maybe a little more tech savvy or more used to the virtual working, that might not have been the obstacle, but the obstacle might have been something like Sophia, right? Having other people in your workspace that you're not used to having in your workspace. I work from home. My husband, who is also a lawyer, doesn't normally work from home. So now we've got the two of us, and although I'm used to doing the remote, it's very different when somebody else is also trying to work from home. You know, so I think sometimes it can be an obstacle, and sometimes we can make these changes because we have to and not necessarily because we wanted to. So, but tell me, so talking about being a little tech savvy, how has technology, what are the things that you have come to rely on as a result of this pandemic, maybe that you didn't expect to? Dennis, let me start with you.
Well, I think high quality Wi-Fi is, is what everybody would point to. I mean, you just go right to the basic infrastructure there. So I think there's that. Tom Mile and I wrote a book on collaboration tools and technologies. And I think one of the key things is what I would call really important is flexibility, or we sometimes call it co-collaboration. So can you be flexible enough on finding tools that you can actually work with people on? And can you kind of step back from saying like, oh, I want to use Zoom, or I want to use this, or this is better, or that, and go like, no, we just have to figure out what works for everybody through this period. So I think those are super important. And then to try to just level up just a little bit on some of the basic tools like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Slack, stuff like that. I also say that and I said this on a call we were all on the other day, I'm surprised at the shift from email to instant messaging that's happened in the last couple months. I think that will have longer term implications.
What about you, Sophia?
I think phone systems have been surprisingly critical. I'm a little bit appreciative that some people are getting Zoomed out because, you know, the adage that people are using a lot of, we had a Zoom meeting, that could have been an email. I think that a lot of people who were converting from phone calls that could have absolutely been phone calls to actually have to be in a space where we can get on a Zoom meeting. And so my phone system that I use, Ring Central, I'm able to port my, you know, my office line to my cell phone, to my house phone, whatever system that is. I also, you know, always like to have my earbuds in, which makes life and connectivity a lot easier. So I'm able to, from my Apple Watch directly to my ear or to whatever it is, continue to work and to continue to have those conversations, the accessibility and the responsiveness. So I think that communication is key right now. People need a lot of information, and I think we're using a lot of different things. But I think Dennis covered a lot of the video communications, and I think phone systems are critical. I don't use a virtual receptionist, but I know lots of people who do, and I think that that's definitely a consideration I would be looking at right now if, you know, you're not able to get those phone calls, but to have that person who's relaying the information on your behalf.
Mike, any specific, you know, app or program or something that you've been relying on that maybe you didn't expect that you would?
Well, I was not used to really using Zoom very much. So we do a lot of that to have partner meetings and whatnot, but I've actually found that my clients are fairly resistant to changing their technology to communicate, and they really are still relying on, frankly, the phone, as you know, Sophia said, just regular phone calls. We do a lot of those, and email. And I'll text if I'm trying to try to cut through the clutter, because texts sometimes seem to get delivered and responded to more quickly than email. But for the most part, it's still for my practice, it's still an email and phone world.
It's interesting you say that, Michael, because I've actually been appreciative that I feel like people are learning Zoom without me having to get them to adopt it, because I was like, oh, it's fine. I can get on Zoom with you. I know how to use that. It's like, great.
Yeah. How about you, John? Anything that you've noticed?
Yeah, one thing that our firm needed to get its arms around real quick was billing, the lifeblood of any firm, right? And I'll tell you, Nutter has been around for a while, founded by Justice Brandeis, 1879. So we didn't have electronic billing when he started the place back then, but and a lot of the bills were done, you know, very much print out the bills, they get sent to the lawyers, interoffice mail, people mark them up, go back to the billing center. And very early on, folks said, we don't need to do that. We actually have technology that nobody really uses throughout the firm. You can just look at it on your screen. So it's a pre-biller app. And I had never really used that. I was old school on the billing function, but it's so much easier to get the bills electronically. You open up the screen, you can go through it, you can make adjustments. It goes back to the billing people. It's just so much more efficient. And even when we're sending the bills out, the clients don't want to really get them. I don't think they want to get any bills, right? But they certainly don't want to get them by mail when they're not going into the offices. So you can just be so much more efficient with pretty much every aspect of the practice of law by using technology smartly. And sometimes it takes something like this to force people to see that there's another way of doing it. As I said earlier, I don't think 5-10 years ago, the tools would have been as robust as they are now, but now it's very, very painless. And I don't think I'm going to go back to billing how I used to bill. It's just easier to do it using the digital tools.
Yeah, that's funny you say that, John, because I had a conversation with a law firm earlier today with that exact issue, that they had to transfer over from printing out the bills and marking them up to doing the markup electronically. I would say for me, the one thing that I've relied on more than I normally would is a headset for some of the reasons that I mentioned before. So having a good headset, I think when you're doing a lot of these Zoom meetings, because it can help you with blocking out noise from the outside, and so it helps people on the other end and helps you on your end as well. And so that leads me to, we'll do like a lightning round at the end. I know Dennis likes lightning rounds of what's maybe one brand new technology, or at least new to you, technology tool that you have explored during the pandemic. And I'll start with John this time.
Yeah, nothing particularly unique to the law, but my kids recently gifted me this Apple Watch. So I've been messing around with that. And I heard Dennis say the other day, it's actually probably more useful when you're not working from home than it is, when you're working from home. So far, I described it as maybe a gadget, but I found some utility in using it, just sort of keeping in touch with people. Sophia mentioned earlier the importance of being in touch and knowing instantaneously who's trying to get to you, knowing whether you can postpone that for a minute or, give them a quick reply. You have to be in touch with people. I mean, clients expect that. And I also just get generally nervous when I'm not sort of in touch with people. So it's, I found it to be useful, maybe more useful once we get out of this environment, potentially.
Great. Mike, what about you? Any new tools that you've learned?
Well, I've been experimenting more with electronic signature technology. Obviously, in my practice, people are signing a lot of documents. So trying to get up to speed on DocuSign and other programs, and how those interface with your PDF program and what does and doesn't, and using those electronic create your own forms types of activities has become more prevalent and more upfront to really have to deal with. So the only other thing is a kind of an app, not an app, but a piece of equipment because I get out and walk a lot and don't want to talk on the phone this way all the time when I'm getting phone calls from people, is a pair of Apple earbuds that they work really well for really on phone calls. So I tried a lot of them and kept sending them back. So thank God Amazon lets you send everything back. But those come in really handy and are inobtrusive.
Sophia, he's speaking your language since you were just talking about your little earbuds there. So tell us how about you? What'd you discover?
I did just get the new Surface 3 laptop, and Dennis, you actually convinced me to get my first Surface when the first Surface book came out, because once you go to a touchscreen laptop, unfortunately I used to be a Mac person, but I just can never go back. So actually the addition to that is a docking station with a touch screen screen that you can, so the laptop can be in the office or it can be in the home office, and that you're still able to use a larger screen than the laptop docked to it, but that it's a touch screen.
Great. And Dennis, I'll let you have the last word on new tech.
Well, I'm trying a lot of things, especially in the innovation and collaboration space, and going deeper into some of the tools that I have, like Microsoft Teams and Windows 365. But the thing I want to share is I had this realization that work from home is actually different than working mobilely or remotely. And everything that I was looking at in technology for the upcoming year was based on me traveling. And that's not going to happen. So the technology I'm exploring, or for the first time in years, is a desktop computer and large curved screens. So who would have thought that at the beginning of the year?
Exactly. Well, I think this is great stuff, everybody. Thank you for participating to our panelists, and thank you for watching. Please let us know if you like to see more Zoom roundtables or video roundtables from LTRC. Thanks again.